move on now. And I'm going to ask Steve Preston, our IOTA president, to give us a talk about the best or brightest asteroidal events of the coming year. He's done this annually, I think, for at least 10 years. And we always appreciate his prognostications, because it's always fun to really observe an easy, bright event. And that's really, I think, what he's going to talk about. So take it away, Steve.
Okay. Yeah, I've done it for a while. It's getting harder and harder because we have so many good events now. Basically, it used to be just a question of trying to figure out the ones where we had good data on we had good confidence in the path, and then choose the brightest ones of those. But now there are just so many events where we have good confidence in the path that it would take a long time to do all those. So I'm going to go through these events rather quickly in a minute, but then there's also, I'll have the PDF files that I'll show you. I'll have those all posted so everybody can go through those kind of at more at your leisure later. So, you know, I'll be going through them fast for now, but they'll all be up there. And I'm probably missing a lot of events that you might find are interesting just because there are so many events. Now, the other thing this brings up is, historically, this has all been about the best events, meaning the ones that are easiest to observe, which usually means a good path and a bright star. But I think there's so many of those now that it's about time for us all to start transitioning toward thinking a little bit more about what are the most important events. So now that we have the ability to observe events where we can gather more data, because those events are more accessible, like the near-Earth asteroids and other objects of interest, that we need to start making ourselves aware of those events and not just the easy to observe events. So my presentation here will be a bit of both. I'm going to talk about the events that might be considered, whether objects which might be considered a priority for some reason, and then also a few events which are easy to observe and good in that sense. And then looking forward, also mentioning briefly, I'm still a little behind on posting events for 2024, but I'm getting there. The change I'm looking at making is for asteroidoccultation.com. I'll post a lot more events, but I'll have a little less data for each event. The idea being that now that we have occult watchers, our primary source of the most accurate prediction before we try to observe, I'm kind of refocusing asteroidoccultation.com as a resource to allow us to kind of get a forward look at what events might be coming in the future. And so I'm going to try to add more events to that page, and I'm going to try to change the page so that I can see, so that we can search that list of events a little more efficiently. As I add more events, it's going to be too time consuming to go through events just manually and look at, say, I think I'll probably have 10,000 events up there. That's just too many to go through and try to review without having an ability to do some filtering. So that's taking me a little while to add that to the website, but I'll get it up there hopefully in not too many more weeks, but that's the goal. So anyway, I'll move on. Let me share my screen here and start bringing up events. So hopefully everybody can see this. So I'm going to start with a set of what I'm calling priority asteroids worldwide. These are asteroids which are just asteroids in general, but in this case are associated with space missions, and therefore are of interest because the people running those missions want to know more about the objects and the orbit of those objects. So, so here we go. See if I can get this to move. All right. So there's really just two events in this list: Dinkinich and Donald Johnson, both of which are interesting to space missions. Here's one with Dinkinich. It's a tough event. Only 0.2 seconds maximum duration, but the star is fairly bright at 10.7. But the uncertainty is large. So this would not be an easy one to catch, but it'd be very valuable if we did catch it. The error in the path is probably 10 path widths, because the object is only about 1 milliarc second in diameter, and the cross path uncertainty looks to be about 10 milliarc seconds. The other event of interest is Donald Johnson going over Japan in, again, a short duration event, 0.3 seconds, somewhat dim star, magnitude 11. And again, the uncertainty and path list is fairly large at probably 4 times the path list. So again, this would require a lot of observers, a lot of stations, and probably reasonably large telescopes with a magnitude 11 star and a duration of only 0.3 seconds. So that's the first set of events. The next set of events is near-Earth asteroid events. Again, these become more and more interesting objects. There's a couple of things for us to do here as a group. One is to continue to refine our ability to capture these events, both in terms of the fact that they're short duration, but also because the path uncertainty is better than it used to be, but it's still quite large sometimes. It means we need to get organized and set out a lot of stations, possibly with a lot of people. Both those are challenging, sometimes with large telescopes, sometimes with cameras that can run faster than video. So anyway, here's a few, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4 events with objects. In this case, Didymos and Phaethon were the ones that are considered priority near-Earth objects because of the ongoing interest in these objects. Didymos and then Phaethon is interesting both because it's a near-Earth object, but also because there seemed to be some diversion in there have been, if I understand, recent observations imply that the orbit solution was not as accurate as we expected. So we want to try to gather more data on Phaethon to kind of firm that up. So this event with Phaethon, with Didymos here across Australia is rather interesting. It's a fairly long event for Didymos of 0.8 seconds, almost a full second duration. And the path uncertainty is very good for this one. Should be high path uncertainty for this. Star magnitude 9.9. So the challenge here for Australia is trying to get a bunch of people in this path, which is going to require people to move. Probably, I'd be surprised if anybody happened to be located on this rather thin line of only 700 meters, 700 or 800 meters. So that would be the challenge in Australia. Here's one with Phaethon across Europe, magnitude 10 star, 0.3 second duration. Path uncertainty will be good. But again, it's a small object. Well, this isn't as small as Didymos, still 5 kilometers, so quite doable. One over Eastern Australia with Phaethon again, magnitude 11, dimmer star and much shorter duration event, 0.2 seconds. And another one with Phaethon, this across the Western US and late in the year. So that time of year could be tough from a weather standpoint, but magnitude 9.5 star, 0.25 second duration. Then there are also several other good events with near-Earth objects in 2024, which will become apparent as I get the postings done for 2024. There's these clusters of events where there's several events with these interesting objects. So if we can get lucky and pick up observations of the early events, then that can help inform the path and give us a better chance of success with the later events. And all these objects are particularly interesting objects. I think these are all related to space missions again, maybe. Toro may not be, I'm not sure. Maybe it is. So there's clusters of these events. And again, this PDF will be up on the meeting website later. So now I'll move on to away from the priority events, prior interesting objects, into sort of some best events. Here's some best events across the world. And let me maximize that just for fun. So several here, interesting events. All these things will be very high path certainty with reasonably bright stars. I'm going to roll through these kind of fast. Here's one with Titania, hits Southern Europe and India, Southeast Asia. Here's one across Europe, one across Japan. And I'll mention, I believe on pretty much all these, there will be no issue with the RUWE number and no duplicated source flag either. Here's one across New Zealand, across Australia, over Japan, Europe, a little bit of twilight interference, but with magnitude 9 star, probably doable. Australia, New Zealand. Another one over Australia, a little bit of Japan, Eastern Russia, and Southeast Asia, Southeast US, Australia, New Zealand, Australia. So that's those. event. And then lastly, events for North America, or these good events for North America, several, but again, now there's more events with reasonably bright stars, and in this case, I chose ones that had really good path certainty. So there's still some with very good path certainty that brighter stars a lot more. So here's one, magnitude 7 star. This is over Mexico, 9.7. Northern US, magnitude 9.6. Another one over Central America and the Caribbean. Southeast US again, magnitude 9 star, September. And Eastern US. Okay. So that is a quick run through of several events for coming up for 2024 that are of interest, either because of the object or because the events are good statistics. But once we get to looking at 2024, I think we're going to see a lot more good events than I have on that list. I mean, that's a short list of events. There'll be many more good events for people to observe. Any quick questions? Okay.
There's one comment in the chat for you, Steve. Yes, Steve, I'd like to see an easier access to the high value events on our OW desktop outputs. It's not easy to tell which are the ones most important to get data on.
Right. I agree. That'd be good to do. That's something we need to figure out how to add into OW and the desktop, is how to flag events as a priority on there, as opposed to just via the notices on the mailing list, which has really been our only way of doing that up to now. In theory, we could be able to do, and maybe this will be the answer actually, is to establish an OW has this concept of tags, where you can tag events, and we've used that as a close association with feeds. You know, the IOTA feed is events which are tagged with the IOTA tag, but tags are a little more versatile than that, so we can start tagging events on OW as being a priority, and then in theory, then you would know that it belongs to priority list as well as IOTA list or other list, and then that's probably a good thing for trying to figure out. It is that's mainly a question of just trying how to get organized among the various people that curate the OW system and manage that system in order to make sure we tag the events that are of particular interest, and hopefully tag them well ahead of time. You know, OW puts events up 2 months ahead of time. That's probably good enough. But for some events, we'll want to have even more advanced notice, and that will require postings to the mailing list, I think.
I wonder if it could evolve to a point where there was actually a value number that was given to each event, at least based on current knowledge. And
I think it's going to be kind of hard to associate a value between the two. Is my guess.
Subjective, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there will be a limited number where we say these are priority events, and then there's maybe going to be an even more limited number where, as a group, something we've been talking about for a few years, and we do it to some extent, but we can maybe be better in organization, is the idea of campaigns. At least in North America, we try to identify a couple of events per year that we're going to call these campaign events. And the goal was one event per year was one with a high scientific value. This is not an easy one to observe, but we want to go try to get it. And we try to identify those as well ahead as possible and tell everybody, hey, plan your calendars around this event because we want a lot of people there. And then one other event per year would be based around an event which is easy to observe. And that's coming up with the Aneramnia in September, I think. Roger, you're going to talk about that. So yeah. So that's kind of been our approach so far. We'll see if we can make that work. In addition, try to help flag events either through the mailing list. Damia regularly posts things in the mailing list, which things are of interest to her campaign, her interest, and David often posts things to the mailing list when there's events of interest on particular objects. But it'd be good to get those flagged on OW as well.
I have fond memories of past meetings where we've assigned the location and the date to coincide with 2 or 3 nice events, and then you kind of get an automatic.
Yeah, the
Okay.
challenge with that is we've done that, though there's pluses and minuses. Once you get everybody there, that's a plus because you got a lot of people there. The minus is we're all in Las Vegas and the weather's terrible in Las Vegas and it was clear somewhere else. So we wound up in the wrong place. But
Well, that's why we should go out west.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes it's good in Vegas, or it's bad in Vegas, but better in California. We would have met her there. So that's sometimes it's better to have people on some events, to have people be flexible and just show up and go observe and then maybe gather somewhere nearby, wherever that is. It's not necessarily tied to the meeting. So we're still kind of experimenting with that. It's a bit of both. It's kind of an interesting question.
I have a rating system for occult watcher events, and each month I spend considerable time going through the next month's potential observations. And I just want to say that I'd be interested in participating in the conversation whereby flags or ratings are given to a cult watcher, because it's something I've been doing for a couple of years.
Yeah, that'd be great. You know, yes, good. Okay,
Can I just share my screen quickly? Stevie showed lots of paths going across Australia.
yes.
I thought it might be useful just to show people the population distribution
Yeah, you
in
guys have to do a
Australia.
lot of driving, don't you?
Well,
Fast cars, maybe.
over here, that's map of Australia. Each dot is 500 people. So in here, there's basically nobody. That path of
Yeah.
faith on which went across from there to there, the probability of an observer, the path going over an individual in Australia is stuff all.
Well, unless you get in your car and go get in the path. That's what I'm trying to encourage you, I have to say.
And in this
Look
part
at all
of
that,
Australia,
look at all that dark sky, all those dark sky locations, you know?
yeah, unfortunately, it's low altitude, high humidity. And when you want roads, there's a road across there, and there's a road up there, and there's a bit of a road up here. If you want a sealed road in there, there's stuff on. There's a road from Darwin down to Adelaide, and
Right.
from Alice Springs out to Uluru, Ayers Rock. That area is not something where you just get in the car and drive to. And people go on the roads out there, and in summertime, each year we have people dying because their car breaks down and they haven't told people where they're going.
How about the northeast coast? Are the roads up there?
Oh, there's roads up there, and there's
Yeah.
roads going into Queensland. Queensland's not too bad. New South Wales, Victoria's fine. But
Anyway, I realize it's mobile observing is different. But,
yeah, and basically in that region, you're looking at on the main roads, 100 kilometres between, I won't call them towns, between a group of houses. And other places you need to take your own cans of fuel with you.
Yep.
Anyway, I've said enough there.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Definitely.
Thanks, Steve,
Okay.
for that presentation.
Sure.
And I'm looking forward to observing some of those events.